I met a gypsy.
Well, Australia has finally won a Motocross of Nations, and that was one of the most epic performances. It was one of the most epic Motocross of Nations that I've ever watched, but I think it was just an absolutely incredible performance from Team Australia and everybody that was involved. I think this might have been the year that Australia took it maybe more serious than ever. First of all, they selected Kyle Webster, who was just in cracking form all year in Australia. He narrowly beat Jed Beaton for the Australian title. And he was on a Honda, which lined up perfectly with Jet and Hunter, who are obvious picks for obvious reasons. And then he goes over, he lives at the Lawrence compound for a whole month before Motocross of Nations. And then Honda HRC flies over their entire team. Webster's on a factory 250, which is just huge for the Motocross of Nations. And you had Lars and the entire team that was in Team Australia gear. So just logistically, the effort that went into this win by so many different people was just amazing. And to stay on Kyle Webster, that first moto performance, I just got goosebumps. That first moto performance from Kyle Webster was exactly what we needed. He got second to Kiter Wolf, who is the current MX2 world champion. And that performance was all we needed from him. Obviously, you can drop your worst moto score. So with that moto in the bag, and with Hunter's ride through the pack in the first moto, we got to keep both of those scores going into the last moto. And man, it is just so clutch, the performance that Kyle Webster put in at Motocross of Nations this year. Clutch as well was Hunter getting not like a terrible start, but not a great start. Actually, no, he was like 20th at one point in that first moto, right? First lap. Yeah, dude, what am I talking about? That was an insane ride in the first moto from Hunter as well. And the importance of being able to keep both of those scores just can't be understated. Jet then goes out and just annihilates everybody in his first moto and just sets up this incredible finish. And we were just on the edge of our seats waiting for this third moto, knowing that we really had an incredible chance of winning our first ever Motocross Nations. And I've been watching this race my entire life, and I've never got to see the Aussies stand on the top step of the podium. So this was so special. And I think another just massive shout out has to go out to Michael Byrne. Michael Byrne has been one of the keys to the Australian team and program for years. He was always so solid with the teams that he was on while he was racing. And I think the wisdom that he brought to this team this year was incredible. I said before the third moto, I was like, I really hope they give Hunter that inside gate. Give him the best chance, because we all know what Jet is capable of. They give Hunter the inside gate. He gets a great start. Jet's there in like 12th or 13th. And then he rides all the way up to the front to just put on one of the most epic races that we've seen in a very long time. He gets pipped at the post by GYPSY, but by that time, we won the war. The battle was fine. Tim can have that one. That was an incredible moto by him. But yeah, Jet Lawrence really showed the world why he is the best rider in the world right now. 2 weeks after racing in Vegas on a Supercross track, they go out there and deliver that performance. So to hear the Australian anthem and to see those boys up on the podium is just so meaningful. I know I speak for so many Australians when I say that we're incredibly proud of those boys. And I think that is going to be the first of many over the next 10 years. I think that those guys are going to carry our team well into the future. We've got some epic young talent coming through from Australia. And I really think that we're going to be in the mix every year for the next decade. And that brings me to my final point, which is Australia needs a motocross of nations. You have arguably the biggest superstar in the sport globally right now riding for Team Australia, and you have his brother right there with him. I think we need a motocross of nations down under. That would be the only thing that could top this weekend. So I just wanted to say a massive congratulations to the boys, to the team, to Lars, to Berner, to Mark Lutzich and Motorcycling Australia that do all of the fundraising throughout the year to get the boys there. Dazzy for playing his part with working with Kyle when he was over there, staying at the Lawrence at the Lawrence compound. This was just a dream year for Australian fans, and also to all of the Australian fans that are in the crowd as well, just to be able to listen to the broadcast and to hear the Aussie chants, to see the Aussie flags, to see the boxing kangaroos. This was a truly special weekend to be an Australian and to be a motocross fan. So thank you, boys. Thank you to the team. You guys gave us something that we've been trying to get for a really, really long time. So thank you, boys. Also, while we're on the topic of Motocross of Nations, I think Team USA also deserves a pretty huge congratulations. Man, that was a full-on, you can't call it a B team because they're amazing riders, but the fact that that come together so last minute. I was speaking to John at Yamaha just today, and he was like, man, the effort that had to go into that to get those guys on the starting line. Coop rode fantastic. Obviously, I mean, he spent 3 days on a 250F before that weekend. And he delivered. The 250 is the linchpin of the whole thing. If you can't have a guy on a 250 that puts up good enough results, you're never going to get on the podium at Motocross of Nations. And Coop did exactly what he needed to do. AP was solid. He did everything that he needed to do as well. And man, he took some really big hits towards the end of the season. And the Americans, you have to remember, have just come off 31 races. And they went from Supercross to Motocross to this hybrid SMX setup. So for those boys to pony up, go back to Motocross, and go to a completely different country on completely different setups and perform the way that they did. And dude, Eli Tomac. I think it's safe to now call Eli Tomac Captain America. That's it. That's what he needs to be called from now on, because man, the level that Eli was able to rise to for this Motocross of Nations, if you look at the year that he's had with injuries, he's just come off SMX. He really was the reason that the US were able to stand on the podium, and they got second this year, which is just an absolutely incredible feat. So massive shout out has to go to the US guys as well to get second with the team. And again, it's not the team as in the riders, but it's the way that that team came together. And at Texas this year, I was hearing rumblings that they were just not going to send a team. And then Chase gets hurt in Vegas, and then I was like, they're definitely not sending a team. And for the US to not only send a team, but then to get second to beat all of the European teams, I think this whole argument about the US not being as good as the Euro guys, I mean, they really, really, really stuck it to the world this weekend. So I think the Americans have a lot to be proud about this year. And then just to the Team Netherlands, I mean, Koldenhoff, he really had a hard weekend. He had to dig deep to get it done for those boys. I think Kaiser Wolf showed everybody that he's probably the best lights rider in the world right now. Dude, to see him and Deegan go at it on that track this weekend would have been probably the only thing that could have made Motocross of Nations better. But Kaiser Wolf was absolutely incredible this weekend. Coonan as well was amazing, but obviously had the crash. But yeah, and then Hurlings is just a freak. He's just so gnarly. to be able to do what he does year on year. So overall, amazing Motocross Nations. The crowd, if you go back a couple of years to Madeley Basin for a Motocross Nations crowd, not the best crowd. And I had a ton of DMs in the lead up to Motocross Nations from the GYPSY gang that are in Europe and in the UK. And they were all saying how pissed they were at the price of tickets. And I think that the price of tickets is a direct reflection of how much it cost Dixon and the promoters to actually host that event. So I think that, I mean, I don't fully know the economics behind it, but I think that really expensive ticket prices really stopped a lot of hardcore moto fans from actually going this year. And it was evident. You could just see in a lot of the crowd photos that it was just nowhere packed as it has been in years previous for the same event. So, but overall, from a fan's perspective, watching Motocross Nations, that was just an incredible weekend of racing. And we really have been spoiled to a fantastic season in MXGP, AMA. The Australian Series was incredible this year. Jed Beaton and Kyle Webster got a tie for the 450 championship, and Webster won on a countback. So globally, we're in such a good position with the sport, and Motocross Nations was just a beautiful cherry on the top of an incredible 2024 season. So that's all I've got. Appreciate you guys, and I'm already fizzing for next year.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search GYPSY Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. GYPSY Gang.